recording. How's everybody doing?
Not dead
Good.
yet.
Chris is
Making it through the week.
Chris is still not dead, and that makes me very happy.
It's
Um,
a good way to be.
it is.
Yay.
Keep fighting the good fight, Chris. Um, so if y'all have um, teammates who are not here or whatever, and you want to remind them or whatever, that's fine. I'll just assume that everybody is budgeting their time correctly and we're getting ready to top that peak right as we start heading back down toward Thanksgiving. So I understand people are going to sort of phase out a little bit. I did see Talon had posted some stuff on the Discord channel that was looking really pretty good. So that's got me kind of excited. Um, what I wanted to go over today, one was to sort of there's Katie. One of the things I wanted to go over today was uh, just again like kind of anytime you have questions or need some feedback on anything, some time for that. But primarily, what I wanted to try to cover was a quick, we'll call it a crash course in in using motion capture. Now, I recognize that at this point you probably have the two shots that you're working on. You probably have most of those, pretty close to completed. This is almost more like a little bonus lecture, but you may find a way to implement it into the current project you're doing. It may even be that you get everything done and you decide you want to just play with this as an extra little side project, or it may just sort of spark some interest. I'll also be honest, like every time I teach this class, it's a beta test of what works and what doesn't work. Um, and I've been holding off on doing very much on motion capture. I'd considered putting it in this semester, and really I'm just going to test drive it today and see if this is something you all actually feel like is beneficial. Right, my mind's already kind of churning, or the gears are kind of like churning to come up with a plan for the next time I teach this class, right? Like what is clicking, what is not clicking, what should I implement more of, what should I take out, um, and this is kind of also to see if this is a beneficial thing to utilize. Um, so for a while we had a motion capture stage here in the digital media department. This was probably before most, if any of you were here. But it was in 195 back in the printing area, and it was huge. Like it took up half the room. Turned out it was a fire hazard. And to be honest, it didn't work very well. It was a markerless system, and it was kind of one of the earlier ones. And so we ended up kind of getting rid of that because it was taking up too much room for the amount of payback for it. Um, and so we used it a little bit, but not a lot of people were super excited about motion capture as a most people think of motion capture as this like chore almost. Like you have a whole bunch of motion capture data, you got to clean it up to get these animations done for the game or for the project for the film. I'd like to talk about it a little bit more um, of like another type of animation position instead, which is where you as an animator are getting to craft large volumes of motion instead of having to nitpick details of motion, right? Um, because I think that that's how it's going to start being utilized, and I think that slowly the job of animator is going to start nudging toward this idea of um, using all of the tools at your disposal, right? Like that's why we cover a lot of plugins and scripts. That's why we cover a lot of stuff. And almost although this is a fun job and it's like I really enjoy blocking and getting these performances and getting this very custom stuff. In the end, like your job is the larger project, right? It's a film, it's a TV show, it's a game, and your job is to get all of the motion necessary for that larger thing to function, right? For people to be able to play your game and have all of the animations it needs in it. And there becomes a point in that process where um, where you distance yourself from like that. You don't distance yourself. You just start to recognize the work as something that has to get done, right? Um, and when that's the case, then it becomes very easy to be like, oh yeah, cool. Let's just use some motion capture for that, and I'll clean it up a little bit, and then that animation will be done, right? Um, and so, but some people I think may actually like sort of the technical aspect of it, the elements that go into motion capture and being able to to get a product a lot faster and then still have some creative control over it, right? It's not something you're building completely from scratch, but it is something that you still get to custom uh, edit as an animator. So, um, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and there we go. So I have the cowboy here. I have him open. I'm going to move this over to the other screen right now. I'll bring it back if we're doing a lot of talking. And then I also have a Google Chrome tab open. And so you are welcome to follow along with me, or if you just want to watch, I am, make sure, yes, I'm recording this. And I know last class period, the video I recorded, I just put that on my YouTube page, Greg Marlowe Learning. So if I'm recording it, like check there first, and that's where I automatically upload it. If for some reason, I'm recording it differently, I may need a reminder. It may be a little bit longer before I post that. But you can usually find the stuff I record up there. So if you've looked at Mixamo already, you'll realize you have to log in with an Adobe account. I don't believe that it requires you to, let's see. Yeah, because that account I just used is not my, that is not my Adobe account. That's just a Mixamo account you can create. Right? I don't think it costs anything, or at least not for the basic features it doesn't. And has anybody had a chance to kind of play around in this and try some of these out, or look at some of these yet?
I have not.
Okay. Well, if you did, or if anybody does, or if you're doing it right now, it's really just a giant collection of free motion capture data. I will say that this is not the only giant collection of free motion capture data. There are some versions of Maya that come with a bunch of clips built into it. There's also, if you just type in free motion capture data, you're going to find tons of places that. So this Roku Motion Library is one of them. I'm not sure exactly how we get to that, but I think that is like a lot of times this can be built into Maya. I don't know if it is in the version we have or not, but it's a whole bunch of different motion capture. There's this Carnegie Mellon has a motion capture stage, and they've been capturing stuff for years. Um, a whole bunch of different places where you can get what's free mocap moves from Roku. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but right now we're going to use Mixamo, and so there are a couple different characters you can look at, or actually quite a few different characters you can look at this motion on. I'm going to just choose something kind of neutral, just here, just so we can see. I do I have to buy him? Yeah, use this character. So this is basically just a kind of like a little bit of an animation um, uh, package just in the web, right? Because I can go in here to these animations, and this is basically just a skeleton. I guess we should talk about motion capture data first. Motion capture is applied to a skeleton, not a rig, right? So basically, this character just has a bunch of joints in it. You'll notice that he's in what we call a T pose, right? Now there's lots of different poses you'll see for a character, right? Like if we look at our character right now, he's pretty much in a T pose, right? But sometimes you'll see characters that are in what they call the A pose, which is more like this, right? And actually, this is the pose that is probably easiest to get the best skinning out of a character. So, like, T pose isn't the only type of pose that your character may be in. For anything we're going to be doing with this Mixamo, though, our character, we need to eventually get our character into this T-pose. This is where all of this data started from, is they started from this pose, right? And so that gives us sort of this relative similar pose to consider, right? So like, if my character is going to put their arms down, we know that the character needs to put their arms down 90 degrees. If our character was in the A pose and they put their arms down 90 degrees, their arms would go through their body, right? So we'll have to make sure that our character's in the T pose if you're ever applying this to something that is not a character in that pose. But from there, we can just test some of these animations out to see what we like just by like double clicking on some, right? Get this reaction animation. It's like somebody gets punched. Have this dying animation. He gets hit, falls to a knee, falls to the ground. Now there's some stuff we can do over here with it. All right. Um, we can we can trim parts of it, but if we don't need the end of it, we could end it like right there. Right? And so really it's just the amount of data you want. Right? But I'm going to go ahead and use all of it. The other thing we can look at here is like just, oh yeah, it's like there's this mirror option, right? And so notice in here when he falls, he kind of falls to the right of the character. If I click mirror, it'll kind of mirror the animation where he falls to the left, right? So all of this is just different data that we can use. I haven't really tried all of these sliders to see what it does. Oh, it's like how far he alters his direction at the end. So if we want to follow him over. So there's just a lot of little things that we can add in here. Here's a joyful jump, right? And you'll notice that a lot of these have some slightly different things we can change in it, right? We can even change the height of his jump. Hey, I make him jump even higher. Let's see how high we can make him jump. Right? Actually, I don't like it quite as much. And what does style do? Oh, that's like pushing everything a little bit. So we can pull it back and make it less exaggerated if we wanted, or we can make it more exaggerated. There we go. I kind of like that more exaggerated one. Yeah. So every one of them has like some slightly different things. What I'm going to do just first is I'm going to find a pretty simple motion one, right? Like a walk or a run. Let's just try a run. Okay. So let's try this one. This is a good example, right? Let's say what I wanted was I wanted this acting shot where my cowboy just kind of walks up to the bad guy, or two cowboys walking up to each other, and like it's kind of like a showdown, and then one of them just turns and runs away, right? And so I may spend a lot of time on my acting for this, like them both walking up and the way they're looking at each other, or whatever. But it's time to get the shot done. I don't have time to do this runaway animation. And so this is a good reason why I might just want to use this, right? Especially if maybe he's a background character and he's not necessarily what I'm wanting to focus on. So once I get this kind of where I want it to be, right? Let's go ahead and I'm actually pretty happy with where it is right here. Oh, well, this may be a good example. Let's say I'm filming this from this angle, and right now, if I were looking at this motion capture data from that angle, right, he turns his back to me, and maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want him to turn toward me and run away, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do the mirrored version of it, so I have that. Right? So I have this. What I'm going to try now is just we can keep watching it, but I'm going to go ahead and download this clip. So if I hit download, I get a couple of extra options I need to decide on. There's an FBX for Unity, Colada. This was actually the original people who owned Motion Builder, but I'm just going to do FBX. This is for me. I also just want this to be at the right frame rate, and right now Maya is set to 24 frames a second, so that's why I'll change it. If we were doing this for games, obviously we would want to do 30, right? Um, and then it asks if I want just the with the skin or without the skin. So the skin being that model, right? Right now I don't. I just want the skeleton data. Okay. So I'm just going to say without skin, and I'm going to say download. It's going to prepare my download, and then it's just going to be like, where do you want to put it? I want to put it. Oh, so many options. Is it? This is close. Give me 1 second to find my location. Um, so my project is this polygon in class. Under anim, I'm going to make a new folder, call this Mocap data, and just use that path. And we'll say running away and save. Okay. Everybody with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. It's really weird because I'm in my office and it's a little quieter in here. It's not like a lecture. I'm not in the lab. So sometimes it just feels like I'm talking to myself. So, all right. I have this character here. I'm going to go ahead and just bring in that skeleton right now. So I'm going to go to File, Import. I'm just going to go ahead and go to my anim, mocap data, running FBX. All of this stuff, it really doesn't matter. We're actually going to delete this skeleton before very long. So I'm just going to hit import. And what you'll see is I have this skeleton, and this is what's really happening, right? This is the skeleton that came out of Mixamo, and it's just a bunch of joints, right, um, with keyframe data on it, right? Oh, that's interesting. For some reason, that keyframe data is not on whole keyframes, but that's okay. Oh, is it because I'm in 30 frames a second? That's hilarious. Why am I in 30 frames a second? I must have been doing something for games. So I'll switch mine back to 24. And it looks like everything just kind of lines up. So, so this is the skeleton. Recognize this is my rig, and my rig has a skeleton too, right? We use the advanced skeleton rigging system. The skeleton that is deforming our character is under this group node, and then under main, and then it's this deformation system. And so that's the skeleton, right? Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of like conceptualizing to think about here. Um, you all have probably seen this section of Maya before, but we have all these little buttons across the upper right-hand corner here, and there's this little one that looks like a stick figure, right? And if you open this up, it's got a bunch of stuff in here that sounds like it's about animation or characters. It is, but this is where Maya starts to work a little differently than you are probably used to thinking about it, right? So the way we're usually used to thinking about a character, right, is that we have a skeleton that is it's a deformer, right? It's just there to deform polygons. A rig is there to control the way that skeleton moves, right? So like a skeleton by itself, like this skeleton here, right? If I were to move it down, like its feet are going to go through the floor. The rig is this IK system that keeps our character's feet stuck to the ground, right? And really all that's doing is driving that skeleton that's inside of the character. So most of you has anybody not taken technical direction yet?
I haven't,
Okay.
but
That's a lot of what is covered in technical direction, but it's also something that we cover relatively well in principles of animation just as a concept, right? It's The skeleton is the deformer. The deformer is deforming the mesh. The rig is a interface. It's a user interface for how you can manipulate that skeleton, right? Um, well, motion capture doesn't need a rig. Right? Motion capture is just a skeleton with keyframe data on it, right? And so it doesn't have IK. Actually, let me go ahead and hide my current character, and I'll hide my NURBS curves too, just so you can see this. It doesn't have IK. It just has keyframes on every joint in a way that makes it look like that foot is staying in exactly the same place, right? Um, Interestingly, that is really what happens in a video game too, right? You have this rig that you use to manipulate everything. When you export that animation to a video game, it strips the rig away, it bakes the animation down to the skeleton, and all you have is a mesh and a skeleton that deform in a very specific way, right? So for all of this spot through here where it looks like that foot is, well, let me try to find a better spot. So all this spot through here where it looks like the character's left leg is staying stuck to the floor, it's really not, right? Like if I grab this, it'll go through the floor. Um, what's happening is all of these joints are rotating in the very perfect way to result in this joint staying in the same place for frame after frame. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. If y'all have questions at any point during this, like slow me down, whatever. So this is our motion capture skeleton. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put him in his own layer just so we can hide him for a minute and then bring our character back. So our character has a skeleton too under there, right? And of course this rig is manipulating that skeleton. So we have three things happening in this scene. We have a skeleton for our character that has no animation on it. It's actually being entirely driven by the rig. We have the rig for this character, which has no animation on it, right? If it did, that would be driven by keyframes that I would place in here. And then we have this motion capture skeleton that is nothing but keyframes on joints, right? Um, I think the thing to recognize before we jump into this menu here is that Maya has no idea like what we intend to do with any of this, right? It's just a bunch of data to Maya. And so because there's so many different ways of sort of manipulating this mesh or manipulating this motion, whether it's through the rig or whether it's through the joints or whether it's through motion capture, Maya needs some labels for things, right? It needs to know what is a rig, what is a skeleton, what is motion capture data, what is a character, right? It doesn't know necessarily that this isn't driving this character, right? It just knows its joints and he knows that there's meshes in there. We have to sort of label this stuff for Maya so it will understand it, right? So the first thing we need to do is create a character definition for our cowboy character, right? So I think, bear with me here. I'm going to go ahead and hide my motion capture for now, and we're just going to think about this character. So let's create a character definition. There we go. And you see that by doing that, suddenly Maya gave us some stuff up here, right? This is called character one now. I don't want it to be called character one because it's just gonna be confusing. I want to be more specific with this. I'm gonna rename it. I'll call this cowboy. Okay. So, basically what we just did is we've identified that this is a character for Maya, right? And so Maya, this system over here, right, is different than how we usually animate. Maya is basically saying, hey, I can control that character with a variety of different things, right? We could make you could have this custom rig that you have here. It has an auto rigging system that builds that human IK rig. Or we could drive it with another skeleton. We could drive it with a lot of different things. So the source for the motion is what it's looking for. Right now, the only two things we have as an option is a stance and a control rig. And actually, neither of those have been defined for Maya yet. All we've done is say, this thing that we have selected here, that is a part of our, you know what? I think I may have done that wrong. Let's delete this cowboy. Yes. I think I need to grab the main controller here first. I may be wrong, but let's just try this here. So create character definition. It may be that I can just grab anything and do that, but I believe that I need to grab the main root. And again, we'll name this cowboy. Okay. So we see these definitions over here, right? And what Maya is actually looking for here is our skeleton, right? The skeleton that is deforming this, right? Because this system can actually override our control rig. It can say, this control rig is not what's deforming the skeleton anymore. This system is, right? So to define that, I have to start telling it what each of these joints, like which of the joints in our deformation system aligns to what Maya is using here, right? So if I hold down Shift and click this little plus sign on our deformation system, it's going to expand out our entire character here, right? And what I'm going to do is just go through here and start defining those parts. I'm going to hide my NURBS curves, and I'm actually going to hide my mesh as well. I want to see if it will let me, yeah, just turn on my joints for this. So there are my joints, and I can select them if I need to, right? So human IK. So to define these for the skeleton, I have to, if I double click on this, it's going to be like, what is the joint that I should assign to that? And so for the root, it's just that joint there. So you can tell it assigned it because it turned it green, right? So I can work down my leg. Let's do my, this is a little hard to see for me. So I'm going to go to display, animation, joint size. And I'm just going to keep this up for right now. And that way I can turn my joints up and I can see those a little better. Because then that'll allow me to select it in here. So for this leg here, right? Ooh, you know what? There's something I need to. Did not recognize that his finger was bent like that. That's my fault. I bet that's on this control here. It is. I think I can just zero that out. Okay, cool. We're good. So for the upper leg, I'll just double click on that. Now, something I want you to notice is there's a little arrow beside that, and we'll talk about that in a second. And the other thing is, I double clicked on this left upper leg, right? But then when I go over here, there's 3 left upper leg joints, right? So in this case, I don't always have to choose all of them. What I'm probably just going to do is choose the first one, right? And you'll notice that by choosing the left one, it automatically found my right one as well. Now, if I click this little arrow beside it, you can see that I can also define those other joints, right? If I want to click here, I can say, this is that joint, right? And it seems to have gotten both of them for me, I think. Yep. And then I can double click this one and say, it's this joint. And it seems to have gotten both of those as well. And then for my calf, I can just click this, select that joint, so it's finding both of them. And then for my foot, click the foot. Now something you'll notice on this is it does have the option for toes, and if I wanted to do like a toe one, I could just double click on that and choose that toe. Right. I'm not sure if that was a good idea or a bad idea. We'll see. So the spine, this first spine joint, if I double click on it, I can select there. But since I have a whole bunch of other spine joints, I can just go through here on this drop down menu, and again, you work from the bottom up, right? So I've already defined that one. So I'll do this, and I just start clicking through here. And then I should, yeah, I think that's the end of it. So I can go back up. Let's do my neck and head next. So for my neck, I go here, click the first one, that guy. So again, I'm double clicking on these and defining it. by selecting it. You can also be selecting these in the graph or in the outliner if you would rather. And then this last one is the head. So I'll go back up there, choose the head, choose that joint. Okay. Let's get in here and do the upper arm. So we got upper arm. I'll select that. So you know I didn't find my mirrored upper arm. So I may have to go through there and do that. Let's do this. No, I did that wrong. This and choose that. There we go. And then if I want to, I can step down and get these other twist joints. Right. I'm pretty sure this one begins my elbow. So I'll go back up. Elbow. Seems to have worked. And then finally the hand. I'll define that. Now you'll notice that I'm getting a couple of things turning yellow. Yellow is not perfect, right? It means that it's off a little bit. And I think the reason mine's turning yellow is because it thinks that the hand joint is needing to be different because it's reading this joint right here as the hand joint, and it's not reading that as T-pose. It's reading it as if the hand is crooked, right? I'm actually just going to ignore that for right now, and I think everything will be all right. I think that's all we need for this. Now, I recognize that's a lot of things to click. It may get kind of frustrating to do that over and over and over again, but luckily this skeleton, like if you have multiple characters, they all share this same skeleton hierarchy, right? So what I'm going to do is save this hierarchy. So I'll click this save. I will call this advanced skeleton. I'm going to call this SK for the skeleton, right? And sure, I'll save it wherever it says to. Okay. And that's in case like something crashes. I can always come in here and just load that now, and it will find that. So I've defined my skeleton for advanced skeleton. That's only half of the job, right? From there, I have to click this button right here, which is going to create. Let's see. It probably already has a control rig, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. Okay. So now I'm going to create a control rig for that skeleton, right? And it does. And I'm just going to go. Actually, you know what? I want to undo that. Can I undo that? I can. Cowboy, he's defined. I don't want to lock him. There we go. I'm not sure I want to create that control rig, actually. I think what I'm going to do instead is create a mapping. So it's this last button here instead, create custom rig mapping. I don't actually need a control rig for this character right now because I have one. It's nice to have that, but if I click this button here, basically what it's going to say is instead of creating a control rig for me, it's going to use the control rig I already have, which is all of these controls. Okay, everybody with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So I don't need to see the joints anymore. I can hide those, and I can bring the mesh back up. What is that? That is the wrong one. What did my mesh? Oh, show polygons. So this custom rig mapping is a little. It's similar but a little different, right? I still need to define. Basically, what Maya's wanting to know now is that skeleton we just defined, right? We're controlling that with this rig, right? And Maya wants to know which of these controls to align it to control those specific joints, right? So it's actually a little bit of a different process. I should be able to double click on this and then choose that, but it doesn't really seem to work that way. So what I can do is click on this and then right click on my root and just say assign selected effector. Right? And so now it knows that that's my root placement, right? From there, I can start working up my spine controls. So I need to do this spine control next. So I'll grab this thing here, right click, assign selected effector. And I'm just going to work up the spine and do that. So right click, assign selected effector. I'm going to go back up. Yeah, because I have a chest control up here. So that's what I'm going to assign this to. Assign selected effector. Right. It should try to do some of the alignment for me. Recognize it's got an option sort of built in for FK or IK. But right now I'm just going to choose my foot and assign that over here. And the same here. I have in the past tried to assign the knee to these aims, but I don't think that's really necessary. So for right now, that's all I'm going to do. The arms are a little different because they're in FK, right? And I'm going to have to go to 4 here. Here's my clavicle control. Sorry, let me freeze my mesh so I can't select that. So here's my clavicle control. Right, so I'll select it, right click, assign selected effector. Oh, did I miss it? Why is that not working? Okay. Well, let's not worry about that one then for right now. Let's right click here. So it's letting me do the arm, elbow, hand. I don't know why that's not letting me do the clavicle. Oh, it's because I didn't define my clavicle back here in this skeleton definition. So that's my bad. Double click on this. Current characterization is locked, so I have to unlock it. Let's try this again. Sorry about that. Double click on that one, clavicle, and it found both of them. So I think we're good. And then I can relock it. And then I should now be able to go to my custom rig here and choose this clavicle control, right click. There we go, that fixed it. So same here, it's not finding the mirrored stuff, so assign selected effector. I think I did this, assign selected effector. And I do have a neck control right there. So I'll right click on that, assign, and then for the head, right click, assign. Okay, so I've basically got this defined now. I'm going to go ahead and save this as well. I'm not sure necessarily what to call this. Let's call this Advanced Skeleton Rig Defs. There we go. Okay. I know I keep asking this. Is this making sense of what I'm doing so far? It may not make sense why I'm doing it.
It makes sense. It's just
Yeah, it does.
Okay. I know it's not super exciting yet. It gets
no, it's just more technical stuff that
right.
will take forever for me to figure out.
Well, it's weird. Like the first time you do this, it's giving you all of the things. It's basically saying Maya needs to know what the skeleton is. Maya needs to know what the control rig is. The cool thing about this is once you've done this once, you kind of just think about okay, for this piece right here, what do I need to control? Actually what I've built right now, if for nothing else, is this is a picker now, right? If I wanted to go in here and pick my hips, I can grab it with that. Or if I want to go grab my clavicle, I can grab it with this now, right? So this is my custom rig. Excuse me. So it's got definitions for all of that stuff now. I'm going to go ahead and save this scene just so I have something to come back to if Maya crashes. And I'm going to say Mocap in class, and we'll say cowboy runaway .0001. Say that. So so that's everything I really need to define on the cowboy. Right? I'll show you the next thing we have to do is I'm going to go ahead and just hide I want to hide everything to do with the cowboy just so it kind of gets out of our way. Right? And I'm going to bring back our motion capture data, right, when it runs away. So this is a different skeleton than our cowboy has, right? Like it has a lot of the same things in it, but like the upper leg only has one joint, right? The spine only has these like 4 spine joints or 3 spine joints and a root, right? So this is different, and that's why we're doing this, is because we have one skeleton that has animation on it, and we need to be able to put that animation onto another skeleton. So think about this. Right, in this case, we're using this for motion capture, right? But let's say instead you had an animation on on the Benbot character, right? That you really like that animation, and you're like, cool. I wish I could, put that on a different character. Like for this animation here, you wish you could take one of those run cycles you did for Benbot and put it on your cowboy. Well, that's what this is about. It's basically saying Benbot has this animation on it, but it's on a different rig, right? It's on a different thing. How do I make Maya recognize what a leg is? How do I make Maya recognize what a head is? And if I can do that, then Maya can make those 2 rigs talk to each other, right? It can say the animation that is on Benbot's head can now be on this other character's head, right? Or the animation that's on Benbot's leg can now be on the cowboy's leg. In this case, it's just a skeleton, but I can say the animation that is on this skeleton, I want to make that drive the cowboy or Benbot or anything else. So to do that, again, we have to define this character. There is a problem, though. The very first frame of this animation, the character is not in the T-pose, right? He's in this, like, whatever this pose is. So so I need a keyframe. I need to do my characterization. Like if I go into this human IK thing, which is currently set to the cowboy, I'm going to actually switch that to none for right now, just so we're not still editing things about the cowboy. I want this to be a new character with a new definition, a new set of definitions, and to do that, I have to get this back to the T-pose, which may sound like, oh crap, I got to move everything around and try to get it back perfectly. This is why the rigging process, when everybody's so meticulous about making you freeze transformations and all of that stuff, this is why this is important. If I go back to frame -100, just so I have a spot before the animation, right? And this is my character with all of his animations on it. I'm going to hold Shift and click this plus sign, and that'll expand out my entire rig. And I'm going to grab all of those joints, right? And if I go to my channel box, all I have to do is highlight all of this and type 0. So since these are joints and there's no IK in here, that means the only thing that is actually editing them, or the only way they're actually moving, most likely is a translation, or is a rotation, right? So if I 0 that out, my character goes back to his T-pose. Right? This is the bind pose that the character was originally made in, right? And so now I have a keyframe on -100 with the character in that pose, and then he goes to 0 and starts doing his animation. Okay? So I have all of that pretty much where I need it to be. So what I'm going to do is in this human IK thing again, now I just need to tell Maya this is a different character. This is not the cowboy. This is not a spoon. This is not a, you know, something else. Like, this is not something in the environment that's just deforming. This is a character that I need you to think of like a character. So to do that, I'm going to say create character definition. When I do that, it's going to call it character 1. So now you'll see we have 2 characters in here. Character 1, the cowboy. I'm going to rename my character 1 to, what is this, runaway? Runaway, yeah. Okay. Because the only thing this skeleton is doing in the scene is serving as a source of data for animation. And it's the data for the runaway animation. So it takes me back to this definition page, and so this is where it's going to seem tedious. But once I've done this once for all these characters and I save them, I can bring in 1,000 different animations from Mixamo and use that same character definition, right? Because the skeleton's going to be the same on all of them. So what I'll do is I'll double click my hips, select my hips. And so now it knows that's the hips. And I'm just going to go through here just to find all of these pieces really quickly. Spine. I'm going to go into the spine, work my way up the chain here. This is the first neck joint. I think it's the only neck joint. So you'll notice that there's far fewer joints in this than there were in the advanced skeleton rig. Like, motion capture data can come from a lot of different sources, and some motion capture data may come from a skeleton that has more joints than this. So I went ahead and defined all of them, even though I probably didn't have to. Just in case I ever have motion capture data that utilizes some of these other joints. Upper arm, forearm, hand. So I'm not defining anything in the fingers. Let's go ahead and do clavicle. I think that got everything we really need. So this is one of the important parts. I want to save this, and I'm going to call this Mixamo skeleton. Okay. Now the reason for that is because if I want to bring in another skeleton, I don't have to click all that stuff again. I just have to open this and choose the Mixamo skeleton, and it will just automatically map it for me. So now that I have this and everything is working, this is where it all comes together. This is where stuff starts to get kind of cool. So increment and save. That was all the that was the doing the dishes. This is dessert. Right? I'm not really even going to worry about being able to see my cowboy skeleton here. I'm just going to hit 6 so we can see this. Right. And so right now what we have is the the NURBS, or the rig, or the skeleton doing its thing here, running away, but there's no animation on the cowboy, right? If I go back to my human IK, so all of this, what this is doing is this is a control system, right? We can say, what do we want to control our cowboy, right? As it is right now, the thing that I would use to control him is the custom rig, right? This is like sort of outside of setting all these keyframes in here. This is another control system for a character, right? Just kind of trust me on that. That's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but really this is in addition to all of these keyframes here. And so usually this is set to none, right? When we're just animating on here, nothing is trying to take over my character. Right here, what we're saying is, despite whatever's on my timeline here, take over this character and drive it with something else. And right now, the thing that's driving it is nothing. Right? There's no option to drive it, or there's nothing driving my cowboy character. But all I have to do is change this to the runaway character, and now that motion capture is on my cowboy. Okay, so I can put him in this pose, and he'll run away. Right. so that's sort of phase one of getting this motion capture to work, right? This is raw motion capture data. So there's really nothing going on in here that is that like there's a lot of little problems that we're going to encounter with this. But the first thing was sort of getting that data on our character. And so now that it's on the character, we could make some changes, right? Like if I decided, whoa, throughout all of this, I want his fist to be closed, like I can make those changes here. Right? And now, like throughout all of this animation, his fist is closed. Recognize that I made that change, but I didn't set any keyframes. Basically, what's happening is I'm altering this rig on top of that motion capture data. Right? So that's actually not how I really want to manipulate this. I mean, it works, but I think it's a little bit easier to have control of that later. So, so right now that is working. I got this this animation is on here, right? But if I grab this character's control, even though all of that's happening, notice that there's no keyframes in my timeline for this character on any of these controls we just defined, right? Because it's not actually driving this with keyframes. It's driving this with another skeleton, right? That other skeleton is the source of what's making that motion happen. So if this works okay and this looks good to me, really what I want to do is start being able to work in keyframes again, right? Because keyframes are what I understand. So I'm going to set my timeline to the range that I need the animation to happen. It seems to end right around frame 39, right? And I'm going to go up here because I'm still on my cowboy. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to bake, and I'm going to say bake to custom rig. Just check my settings here to make sure. And I'm just going to just reset the settings to the default. And hit bake, and we get that. And so now all of these controls do have keyframes on them. So now it's just a coincidence that they're doing the same thing, because the thing that is driving my cowboy now is the custom rig, not that skeleton, right? In fact, this Mixamo skeleton here that has all that animation on it, I can actually delete that now. Because now what I just have is a bunch of keyframes on my cowboy. Okay, you still with me?
Yeah, that's very cool.
Okay, so the problem with all of this is that motion capture only captures so many things, right? It's not capturing his fingers, right? You'll notice that all this motion capture data you bring in, your character is doing this palm like motion, right? We have to do something with that. The other thing you'll maybe notice is he's off the ground, right? Like he's not actually running on the ground at times, right? And then to me, there's just character specific things, right? Like his spine that looks uncomfortable. His clavicle doesn't look like it's in the right spot. That hand is bending back too much, right? So, so this is where I personally like to start working in animation layers. Okay, so I can clean this up and I can make it do a lot of really cool things. Here's the problem that most people are looking at is they notice that every one of these controls have a key on every frame of this animation, right? It's all defined in there. Oh, and there's another little issue we're seeing, right? And so like you don't have to do animation layers. You totally could open up your graph editor, right? And go in here and start editing these curves, right? But you're going to have a hard time with that, right? Like you're going to be like, oh, okay, I got to slowly move every one of these, like, and get this curve looking different, right? You could run a reduction on some of these curves because some of this isn't necessary. But really, to me, what I do is I just accept that all those curves are there, and I start working in creating a. Let's see, do I have a picker for this guy yet? I don't. I just start working in the animation layers. So let's go ahead and select all my controls. Make me a character picker for this. Oh, there they are. There he is. And now I have this button to select everything. And what I can do is in my channel box, go to the animation layers, add a layer, right? And then I'm going to use this as correct one. So this is me correcting some of this motion capture data. First things first, the whole character is off the ground, right? Like, let's just fix that one pretty easily. So I'm going to grab, usually what I like to do personally is I select everything and hit S. And then that way I know that everything has a keyframe in there. And I can just say I want this whole animation to be a little lower right there. So now hopefully he's more on the ground, right? That may change a little bit there. So you're seeing other little things that we're running into, right? Like what I maybe would want to do, like, you know, rolling his toe up so it doesn't go through the floor and stuff like that. But I'm not going to do that on this layer, right? This is mainly going to be big sweeping changes, right? So one of the things that I kind of notice is overall the wrist is they're like the wrists were in the wrong angle. And so I'm just going to try to get this in something that makes just a little more sense. And so since I'm on auto key, this is a little more neutral. And by setting this one key, it's basically changing the entire animation. And then my other thing I don't like, and this is just me, I feel like his spine, like it feels like all the rotation is happening on this control and not on this control. And I want him to maybe be a little bit more bent forward on this and a little less bent forward on this. And I think we'll just get a little bit of some better animation throughout here. Okay. So that's working pretty good. I'm also just going to go ahead and end this at the frame where he stops, 39. Okay. Now I just use this correct layer as like an overall like single frame correct. Like the thing that I'm changing here is the overall animation had something wrong with it, right? Like for example, if this came in and his arm were too high throughout the whole thing, I could just lower his entire arm through the entire animation. I would add additional correction layers for other things, right? So for example, and you don't always want to add everything to the animation layer because it can get really heavy and start bogging down. But let's go ahead and add one here, and I'll do this as hands and feet. Right? And so one of the things I could do is select just these hand controls and say I'm perfectly fine with it up until like right through here. I want him to go ahead and start putting his hands in a fist, right? So I'll do from frame 11 to frame like maybe it's more like right here. I want to start putting his hands in a fist. So something like this, I'll go ahead and curl them into a fist, right? And then maybe just a little more control of this, since the hands aren't really doing much of anything as it is. I could go through here and do like right through here. He may get a little bit surprised where his hands go a little wide. And so now I get like a little bit of hand motion in there. Maybe keep the hands kind of wide through here. they go into a fist and he runs away, right? And then for the feet, I want to do some little toe stuff, like it's apparently this one, right? I want to make sure that those toes don't blow through the floor, right? So this is me sort of correcting for that. So when people talk about motion capture cleanup, that's what we're doing right now, right? We're cleaning up this motion capture to make it better, right? So I definitely want something that happens right there, where that toe goes up to like that. Okay, I get it there, but apparently I don't need it much further than that, so I'll zero that back out. Maybe not 0. Let's see. Seems like it could be better there too. And it's probably going to go through the floor here as well, right? Not bad. Okay. And just by doing that, hopefully I'm able to make that floor contact look a little bit better. Of course, I'd want to do that on the other foot too. The other thing that people mess with, stuff like this, like if you notice his foot right there, like that just doesn't look right. So I would go from like here to there. So it's really just subtle pose correction. Right? Through there, maybe I want it to look like he's skidding a little bit more. And then from here, if I wanted to go back to normal, I can just click this little button here and it'll sort of zero it back out, right? And so what I should be getting, something that just feels a little bit better, right? And of course, like that pose correction stuff I could also do for here, right? Like to me, his spine just feels stiff through here. So hit S there, maybe right here, I would do something like this, right? And then have him lean into running away a little bit more, zero that back out and have him leaning forward a little bit more. Right, so again, all of this is just me like trying to make the animation more appealing. The other thing I notice is like his head seems really stiff to me, like right through here. And so like you're the animator, like you can make this better. I can start here, and I can have him sort of start to turn his head a little faster. That way it gets it out to here earlier, and then zero it back out to there. So show NURBS curve. So there's still a reasonable amount of motion capture cleanup I would want to do to this before I would consider putting it in my demo reel or anything like that. Recognize that this is something that you can put in your demo reel. Like you can do. I mean, you usually want to label it motion capture cleanup, right? But that is something that a lot of people are looking for, and just to show that you took, like everybody who's worked with motion capture knows how bad raw motion capture, how many errors you can have in it, and to be able to show that you fixed a lot of that and made it better is a skill, right? Okay. Other questions or any questions for me so far? Thoughts? No.
This seems, yeah, like a very useful thing to know how to do.
Actually, Kate, you all, like on your project, to me, seems particularly useful because of this dance, right? Like,
Nice.
I know you got lots of people who need to dance in yours, right? particularly background characters. This is a pretty easy way of getting a bunch of background characters to do some dancing and sort of filling your scene up a little bit more. Um, so maybe something worth playing around with. Um, and so, what is that? Well, yes, that is a dance, absolutely. Um, yeah, there's lots of them too, dude.
Yeah, wow.
4 pages of dances. Interesting. Okay, so let's try one more thing. How are we doing on time? We got a little bit of time. Um, okay, so I want to let's see. I want to. Yeah, I got an idea. File. So I want to show you one more thing. This is kind of a this is a can of worms I'm getting ready to open up, right? So Windows Animation Editor, right? We got the graph editor. You all know what that is, right? If I select stuff, and obviously with this character, I got all these layers. The graph editor has animation for each of those layers, right? It has the like for my main controller, it has a set for my base animation, my correct one, and my hands and feet layer. And of course, if I wanted to, I can always just merge all of that down. Right? And so in this case, I do want to do that. I'm just going to merge it all into one layer, right? Um, and so I want to, so now all of that is just baked down into one set of curves, right? Um, and it hopefully will make sense. Like these curves are going to work hopefully pretty well. Um, so I want you to recognize that like we're always talking about this graph editor, right? Um, there are other editors in here that we don't talk about that often, right? I mean, like we talk about the shape editor, which is like how you make some blend shapes. But there's this dope sheet, which a lot of people use. And basically, the dope sheet is this is going to be a little confusing to see it. The dope sheet is all of your keyframes, right? Like so you can scrub your timeline here if I can find it. And every one of those yellow ticks that you see in there is a keyframe. So this would make more sense on something that you've manually keyed. But the dope sheet's a really quick way to like re-edit your time because you can grab those keyframes and just sort of move them, right? So a lot of people use the dope sheet for some stuff. There's this thing here, the tracks editor, and I will. So the tracks editor is it was a buzzword for a long time in the early 2000s called non-destructive animation. Right? It's non-destructive. Tracks editor was their first attempt to be non-destructive, which basically is what animation layers are. Right? I can make changes, but it doesn't destroy my curves. I don't have to go back to a previous save. I can just delete my layer and it goes back to normal. Right? Um, an animation layer is kind of the simplest version of non-destructive editing for animation. And the tracks editor was sort of this extension of that. The tracks editor would allow me to take all of these curves or all of these keyframes that I have right here, right? Which I don't need these out here anymore. Um, and it would allow me to sort of compose that into a clip, and then I could mix and blend those clips together, right? And the tracks editor worked okay, but it had a lot of issues with it. So from there, Maya sort of developed an updated version of the tracks editor called the time editor. And so I'm going to show you the time editor. Um, yeah, let's just try this really quick. So here's our time editor. By default, it looks like nothing is really going on here, right? But if I go to this clip right here, it's going to say, um, it's going to take all of those keyframes that were in my timeline, and basically it's just going to bundle those up, and that animation still exists, but you'll notice it's not on my timeline anymore. Now it's in this tracks editor, right? And so we could call this, Where's the rename button? I'm missing it. Rename.
Kind of in the lower middle.
There we go. Run away. Okay. And so now I have this clip of my character running away, and I can select that and say File, Export Selected. And I'm just going to save this as, sure, Time Editor Clips, run away. So, export that. I'm going to save this just in case. Actually, I'm going to undo all of that and get those keyframes back on my timeline and then save it. The way I would think about this is, imagine if we were to sort of group our entire timeline and take it out of Maya, and we're able to make multiple timelines and blend those together, right? So let's just undo until we get back to before this was a clip, back in the good old days. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to open a scene now from a previous thing of me just messing around. So yeah, this will work. Maybe. So what I had here was just some motion capture data, my character getting knocked down, right, and sort of falling to the ground. Let's see if this still works. Yeah, there's all my animation layers. Merge those layers down. So what I want is really it's like this is like a taunt gesture apparently. I don't think it actually reads very clearly on this guy. And then he gets hit and knocked down, right? This was actually two animations that I blended together using this time editor. So what I'm going to do is select my entire cowboy, and I'm just going to delete this second half because I don't really need that anymore. Actually, you know what? I'm not. Let's go ahead and keep it in there. Just to sort of show you how this works. So if I go to Windows, Animation Editor, Time Editor, I have everything selected. I'm just going to create this clip, and we'll call this rename clip, taunt, and die. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and import in that other clip I just created, right? Import animation clip. You'll see it's runaway, open. Right. And so the way the time editor works, where did you go? There we go. The way the time editor works is like animation layers, except it's almost like Premiere, if Premiere were in charge of your animation layers, right? Like I can blend these like video clips, right? I'm trying to get in here better where you can see it. And right now, if I were to, like right now, it's really confusing, right? It's like trying to play two animations at once here. Right? It's playing the taunt and the character running away. But what I can do, stretch this out a little longer, I can take this entire animation sequence and I can either trim it, like I can grab here, we got all these different tools, right? The one that I'm on right now will just allow me to trim it down to before the character dies, to where it's just this like taunt and he goes up to here, right? The other thing I can do is if I want that whole thing to happen faster, I can use this one, and instead of trimming it, it's going to squash it and make it all happen faster. All right, I'm gonna undo that. I just want to do the trimming one to maybe right about there, and then I can take this runaway animation and move it up to the same layer and blend them together. Right? And so what we're going to get is this piece of motion capture, and then it's going to blend to this new pose, and then the character is going to run away. Right? Now, what I recognize is that he doesn't actually start running away till like right about here. So maybe I need to go ahead and trim that. What am I doing? Go ahead and trim this animation to about there. And apparently the character's still dying in this one. So I'll trim him to about right there. Right. So we have these two things, and then I can just sort of blend those together. And so now I have this, like, he does this taunt, and then he runs away. Right. And it just, like, all of that motion is kind of blending right there, so we get a little bit of like some foot sliding there. But I just took two motion capture clips and blended them, right? Um, and there's a lot you could do in this thing. This whole time editor tool is a monster. Like, it's got so much stuff going in there, including its own layer system where I can like pin things over time. Like, there's a lot of different things you can do with this because each of these are their own animation layers, right? Like, you can notice that like each of these, not that, each of these tracks that we have here are their own animation layers, and I can mute them and unmute them, right? So, however, if this becomes a little more daunting and you just want to go back to keyframes, you can always go to, let's see, tracks, bake. And then I can just say bake to scene and delete. And what that's going to do is it's going to delete my time. Oh, I got to grab the two animations to do that. Bake to scene and delete. It's going to bake all of that to my scene, delete these tracks out of here, and now all of those keyframes blended together are in my scene like this, and I can continue to work in this layer system as well. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is animation gets really deep in here, right? There's a lot we can dive into that there's a lot of different ways to control these characters, right? That's a combination of motion capture. Recognize these clips and the time editor that you can use animation you create as well in there, right? Like, let's say you have a walk cycle um, and an idle cycle or something, and you can blend those together, right, to where your character's getting the same head movement from the idle cycle in your walk. And you can blend in and out. You can fade in and out of clips. Like, there's just a lot of stuff you can do in that. So I know that's a lot to try to cram into a day. More than anything, I wanted to record this. I wanted to talk about this with you in case something comes up and you're like, hey, you know what? I can use that. I know how to, I have some ideas for that. Um, the other thing is it may actually just sort of spark some interest in you. You may be like, I want to do more of this, and I would like to have more of this in my demo reel. And let's say you're repeating character animation next semester. This is some stuff you could do in character animation too to explore some more in-depth topics. Right? Okay, I am actually dumbfounded that I was able to get through all of that. I know there was a lot of content, and I know you may not feel like you could just do that again, like that you could just repeat everything I just did. That's okay. Like, I'm recording this and documenting that for this reason, so you can like go back and watch it and walk through it. There's also a lot of information about this on the internet. Like, I can link you to some other video clips that talk about how to apply motion capture data or how to use the time editor. Or you could just Google that and say, how do I use the time editor in Maya? And there's a whole, I think Maya actually released a series of videos on how to use it and some of the things you can do in it. Um, so, questions, comments, things you want to chat about this, or curiosities?
For interaction.
I'm sorry, what?
What?
Oh, I was just seeing if anybody had any questions or um, yeah, anything.
Yeah,
I
just
would
kind
notice that if I would probably have questions if my brain hadn't completely dissolved.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go back and check it out, if you have more questions after that, just let me know. Kate, were you saying something or?
Oh yeah, no, I was also just saying that it's like taking it all in, but
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, especially for our project. I think Savannah specifically was interested like in our group and like maybe working with it. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, check it out and let me know if you need help with it. Like, at least to the best of my abilities, I can help you sort of get up and going with it if you need some help. And so, okay, so let's go ahead and hit on the screen share. All right. So we got a little bit of time left. Does anybody need any feedback on anything or have any questions on anything for the project right now?
I kind of just finished up a little slice of something I'm working on. If you want to check it out.
Yeah, sure, sure. Actually, while
Okay.
you're pulling that up, I will remind everybody. So this is actually I guess today was the last in-person class, but I got upstairs and the lab was empty. So if anybody showed up, Katie, I don't know if you're at home or if you're remotely right now.
I'm at home right now.
Okay,
I
cool.
got out of work too late.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. I was making sure I didn't like leave the room before some people got there or anything.
No, you're
Um,
fine.
so this is the last time we're actually meeting as a full in-person class. I did want to remind everybody next class period, or no, let me phrase that. Friday. Actually, I'll come back to that. I'm gonna check out this Dylan's animation because I do want. There's a couple of little things I'd chat about. Yeah, let's check this out.
Okay. And this is a low quality render. It's like 540.
Oh, that's cool.
On repeat.
Yeah, let's switch it one more time. Yeah, that's looking cool. Where are you? Like, Is this splined and everything?
Yeah, it's mostly splined and everything. So I've just kind of been polishing as I can see things that need polish.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the
and I
little.
was kind of excited about this idea for the effects, so I just did a test render.
Yeah, I like that. So what are you doing on the effects? They're like the smears that he's doing.
Yeah, so
Just hand draw.
yeah, I
Oh,
went into
nice.
Krita and what I did is I did a few layers. So you can see like I did a blur as well as these little like action speed lines.
All right.
So it gave that kind of like more effective speed. And I'll see if I can catch it here. I only put in 2 frames for the impact because you got to be so careful. But I
Yeah,
for the impact frames, I inverted it and desaturated it, and then I added these little vector lines.
that's cool. Yeah. Actually, hold on one second. Katie, I was just going to remind everybody, if you need to hop out for lunch, I get you. I do have a note for you, Dylan.
Yes, please.
Let me hop off here, or let me hop out here really quick and mention some stuff for before people start heading
Yeah,
off,
yeah, absolutely.
and then we'll come back to it. So the thing I did want to remind you about two things. One, I'm going to harp on it as I always do. SAIs. They changed the system this year, so I can't tell if you're filling them out or not. Please do. Like I don't have access to like the percentage of people who have filled them out or whatever. So just take a minute. I mean, y'all are sitting in front of a computer all day, like for class anyway. Like just fill one out while you're kind of in the middle of listening to stuff or whatever. Um, but please fill those out because those are super important this semester because like this is a different semester than any other semester we've had, and I want to make sure we're getting better at this. The other thing I wanted to remind you all of is Friday is the guest speaker, Heather Carpini Harris, and so just wanted to remind you all and let people know. Like invite your friends, like invite anybody else you want to, and kind of come with some questions if you can think of some, just to have like help her out because sometimes it's hard to like completely be ready to like talk for 2 hours or hour and a half or however long we go. Um, so if you come with some questions, that makes the conversation always a lot more interesting. So yeah, for the most part, the rest of the class is just I'm gonna sort of hang out and check out stuff that people are working on. So if you're needing to start making that transition, that's cool. Otherwise, I'll see you all Friday, and if not, happy Thanksgiving. So cool, Dylan. Yeah, let's pop that up again, and I did have a
Oh,
note or
yeah.
two really quick.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Hold on. I should not have closed it.
oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're
Well,
fine.
I can probably give it to you without that.
Oh, no, you're good.
Um,
Already got it up. I
so
have to go to these project folders so often.
So the thing that I notice is the way so two things.
Hmm.
Um, I'm really digging the way he pulls that sword and the way he shoots around. And I like the slice that he does. Like I think all of that animation's looking good. Um, so the after he so let's talk about the guy with the sword first. I think right before the slice, when the bad guy's like zigzagging,
Hmm.
it feels like most of that motion of him following him is just in his head, and so I would take that a little down into his shoulders as well. Does that make sense? And then do like some
Yeah.
lead and follow in there. So right now it just feels like it's just that one curve rotating.
Hmm.
But I think if you add a little bit more of that in the shoulders, there's like these like subtle pose changes as he's watching him, right? Um, and then the other thing on I think the slice looks really good. Afterwards, he does a little bit of a foot shuffle, and then he does like almost a step after he's like put the sword back in. I think it's like
Hmm.
right there. Um,
Yeah.
he's not really shifting his weight enough, or maybe not at all on those. So like make sure he
Okay.
gets a little bit of weight shifts as he's doing that, so he maintains his weight. Particularly on that last step, it feels like his hips stay in the same spot, but he just picks up his leg and moves it. And so you would expect him to sort of shift his weight over the his right leg, his supporting leg, to be able to do that. Um, and so I think I would play just a little bit more with the weight shifts and stuff through there. And I think the last thing is the way the guy falls at the end. Kind of feels like his whole body just falls, right? I think it all falls together.
Yeah.
And I think I would do a little bit of a cascading effect where like his head drags behind, and get like a little bit of drag on parts of the body, so it feels like he's like almost like collapsing. Like I would think like the hips would sort of sink first, and then that would pull his chest down, and his head would drag behind, and he just kind of feels like he would collapse off the screen then. But right
That
now,
makes
just
sense.
it kind of feels like the hips and the head are just sort of falling together, and just sort of offsetting a little bit of that. But yeah, I think this is looking really cool. I like the effects stuff you're doing quite a bit actually.
Thank
Um,
you.
things I would do is consider pulling. So a lot of times you'll see repeating shapes in smear frames. So pause it on a frame where he's moving, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about.
Yes. I actually kind of did that, and then it crashed, and I redid it, and I kind of forgot to do it properly.
Yeah,
But I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Um,
like right there. Maybe what you would get is, or yeah, let's go and do that. Like you maybe would get like some red echoes from that arm, or something like that line's too
mm.
big. Um, let's make this. Actually,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. And actually, that's kind of what I was hoping to get with the blur effect. But I
yeah,
think Krita has a stamp tool, so I'm gonna try to do that.
uh,
That's actually
yeah, something
perfect.
like that. And you can sample parts of the pixels that way and get that like manual smear frame. I like the lines that you're getting already, but I think adding a little color to them would help too. So
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that is unless you're planning on doing something with the toon shader. So if you're doing
Um,
it with a toon shader, being able to replicate some of the line work in that would be cool too. So
Man, it would. I mean, if I'm gonna do effects like this, anyways, like it would be nice to do Teen Shader. I originally wasn't going to because it was just like the entire group project. It
mhm.
made sense not to, but for portfolio piece, like it might be worth
I mean,
getting that render.
that's something to think about too. Like, you're if this goes into your portfolio, there's a chance you'll always like more than likely you'll look back at it a semester from now and be like, oh, I can fix this one little thing, or I could add this thing to it to make it better. And so like this may not be your last render of it anyway. So um,
That's also a great point. I could just come back to this next semester when I'm in portfolio. I'm sure I would have more
well,
insight.
the cool thing is if you're doing this smear frame stuff now, do that on separate layers and then just save that, because like you're probably not going to make major changes to your camera, and those smear frames may still line up. Like you
Yeah.
don't maybe not have to redraw them even if you have to re-render it. Um, yeah, and actually I made a comment on Talon shared some stuff on the Edge um, Discord, and I made some. Oh, that's a great example right there. Like this one here, I think you could do like these echoes of his leg through there,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
like a streak through it or something like that.
That's
Um,
I was really hoping the blur tool would get it, and then
yeah,
it just didn't. But the stamp tool, it's gonna be great for that. I'm so
yeah,
excited now.
yeah. So no, I think that'll look really cool, and I think it's a great usage of it. So, yeah, but Talon had shared some stuff and it actually looked really good. But that was one of the things I mentioned is like the lighting is looking pretty good, but I think you could really like now that you're this far along on it, it's really um, like your lighting can be very custom for this specific shot, right? Like you get the
Uh,
overall lighting that is the same, but I mean, you could do something um, like a little bit more red lighting coming from this direction because the red character's on this side, and like
yeah.
some like green lighting coming from this direction because he's green, and like get or maybe get his shadows a little more green or something like that. I
No,
mean,
I was going to do that, but then I was like, I don't know if we want to still try to keep a consistent project, or so I didn't want to play with
no.
the lighting too much yet.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't take it too far away from. It's more like even stuff like you could set up a light to where you distinctively get a rim light around the edge of his head just to clear his silhouette up more. Like you get like this a rim light that just gives you like these points here lighting up, right?
Yeah,
Just so it pops it a little bit more. And I think it's every shot has that. Like in a film, like you'll get the overall lighting, and then you get the shot lighting, and the shot lighting is like what are you putting in there, to make that specific element.
okay.
I think that this is something you could play with this. Like I really dig what you have going here. Um, but this is such a big dramatic moment. Like I almost like I love the like flash thing you do, but I almost wonder if you could start doing some sort of effect to where like I don't know, don't overwork this, but like you could start to vignette it a little bit more to like the stuff that is still there and like fade out the lighting a little bit up here, maybe sort of pull your eye here. I don't know. I kind of getting I'm just thinking of some stuff you could do with the lighting to really like intensify the drama of that shot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
And it could change a little bit, or it could be something that's a post effect. So, um,
I did add the Z channel to this, so I might be able to play with that in Nuke, which
yeah.
should be interesting.
Oh, I
Um,
mean, you could totally even just do that. You could like everything else could go kind of blurry and like you could sort of get a little bit more glow on the bad guy as he dies, and then like let that glow fade out or something. I don't know. Like there's just a lot of little things you could play around with that are. It's not that that's wrong. It's that that is wrong in this shot or a problem in this shot. It's that those elements are creative tools that are at your disposal too, and I'm kind of just reminding you they're there so you can try to if you want to try to work with those and use that as an additional area of communication you can.
no, for
So
sure. Like that helps a lot. I always get to these points in polish where like I love it and I'm excited, but then I can't see anything else
mm-hmm.
just because I've been looking at it and feel stuck. But
Yeah,
now this is great. I have so many notes.
yeah,
Um, I'll work on this more tomorrow. I'm so excited to get this done. It's looking really it like this is the
yeah.
first satisfying animation I've made, and I'm really happy about it.
Well, you no, like your car animation was good too. Like, I think it's exciting though. I think I'm excited that I do kind of expect to see some of these shots in portfolio now, and I think that that's something I've not always expected out of the 3D animation class, or not something I've ever gotten 3D animation class. Like there sometimes be a shot or two, but this feels like something that people could turn into portfolio shots now.
Oh
So
yeah,
cool.
awesome. Thank you.
Anytime. Anybody else have anything they're needing to share? I know we're kind of coming to the end of the class. All right.